was like to my source, to my guru's feet. And he would say, "What are you doing here?" I'd say, "Well, I lost it, you know." He'd say, "Oh, go away, go back to America." And he'd say, "The light is everywhere. What are you doing here?" Or I'd go into a meditation course. I'd take a course in meditation. Sit for 40 days or 30 days meditating. I mean, if you want to get rid of the toxicities, just sit around with 100 people following your breath for 15 hours a day. And pretty soon your mind lets go of all that stuff and you start to go into these states again. And what I experienced was that I was living my life in a kind of what I hoped was a spiral, but I was afraid might be a circle. See, what would happen is I'd come into the world, and then the world would start to get real, and I'd start to get caught and solid and locked in, and then what I would do was I would go and I'd take off, and I'd leave, and I'd go meditate, or I'd go back to India, or I'd go do something else, and regain that space, and then come back into the world, and then regain the space. Hopefully, that each time I went out, I came back in a little more able to be able to work in the world without losing it. Now, what I had done, you see, was I had bought a certain spiritual materialism, which is the Ramdasness, which is a somebodyness, it's a spiritual somebody, and pushed under the carpet the Dick Alpertness, which is another somebody, a worldly somebody. And I made my distinction that if I am Ramdas and everybody calls me servant of God, I will become servant of God. And that was my method. Now, here we're talking about method, and I'm not going to get in too thick now because we're going to talk more about method later. But you see, if you're walking down the street, see, and you're thinking, "Gee, I'd sure like to have sex with that person," and somebody says, "Hey, Ramdas," and you hear "servant of God," see, it leaves you in a funny place. Because it's sort of reminding you what your game is supposed to be about. So it was a method. It was an awakening method. I was using it to pull myself back into a place so that I could experience that feeling of oneness, and because I kept saying, I want to be enlightened. But really what I wanted was to be high. I wanted bliss, rapture, and equanimity, and great wisdom. I didn't really want to be free. And every time I came back into the world and started to feel that toxicity build up, that thickness of attachment, of clinging, of fear, that feeling of separateness, that feeling of loneliness, of self-pity, of I have a right to, I deserve, I'm not getting enough, that quality of anger, of measuring, of counting, of collecting, all those qualities of my humanness, I somehow felt like I was falling off the path, like I was tarnished, like I was blowing a great opportunity I'd had in this lifetime. And there was this horrible thing that happened to me. I was in India, and I was in the marketplace one day with one of Maharaji's old devotees, an Indian man, who only spoke very little, and he always spoke very straight, very, very straight man, a lovely, lovely man, Guru Dat Sharma. And he said to me, "Maharaji was talking about you," which is very strange that he'd even say that. And I said, "Well, what did he say?" Of course. And he didn't answer that directly. He said, Maharaji was talking about how even the greatest of saints fall off the path. And that has haunted me. That was said 10 years ago. And there are moments when I am in my most worldly space when I think, uh-oh, really lost it this life. Just all I'm left with is a lot of hollow rationalization of just looking good. See? Later in the weekend, I want to talk about the different methods that I tried along the way, and we're going to try some of the different methods of meditation. We're going to meditate in a couple of minutes now. But, so I won't go into all that now, and I'm going to foreshadow what I'm going to be talking about later by just telling you that I finally recognized the meaning of the statement, samsara and nirvana are one. I finally recognized the meaning of the state of the... I finally recognized that as long as I pushed away my humanity, as long as I pushed that down in order to get up, there was no way out of the suffering. There was no way out of the fear, because I was it says, if you stand on tiptoe, you can't get there by standing on tiptoe. In other words, I was grabbing at it and pushing away, and I now finally began to recognize that what I was pushing away was another part of God. I was pushing away another part of my being. And that there was a reason that I'd taken a human birth. So you see, I had these markers along the way, like I've told about Alan Watts saying to me one night when we're drunk at a Benedictine monastery in the middle of the night in his bedroom, and Alan says to me, Dick, your problem is, and that's great when, because in those drunken moments the truth really comes out. Your problem is that you're too attached to emptiness. Here was a guy that had 4 wives, and many children. He obviously wasn't attached to emptiness. I could see that there was something, like there was one point when I was with Maharaji, and I was in 1971 or 2, and it came time where the government was throwing me out of India. And I was very freaked, and I said to Maharaji, you can do something about it, because he had engineered the whole thing. There was no doubt that I was getting thrown out with his blessings. And he said to me, I said, you can't send me back the way I am. Because I knew I was going back into being Ram Dass again in that kind of way where everybody would say, oh, Ram Dass, oh, Ram Dass. I'd say, yes, And all the time I'd be pushing under this other stuff, And then I would have these moments where it was like Marjo or something like that. It was some horrible, imitation of something. And I said to Maharaji, you can't send me back like this. Like, no matter how cruel you are, you can't do this to me. It's like a hell. And he looked me over, translated, and he looked at me, and he said, turn around, and I turned around, and he looked at me, and he came up close, and he looked in my ears, and he looked in my nose, and he pulled on my beard, and he looked at me, and he looked very confused. He said, I don't see any impurities. Now, if you just, without my going on with a story at this moment, if you just at this moment feel what it is that connects you and I, connects you and me, besides lousy English, what connects us, you will see that it is both our divinity and our humanity. The reason you are hanging out with me this weekend is because you know that I recognize that space, that presence, that place that you touch. That is who we are. But you also know that I am a fellow human being just like you. It was interesting that when I wrote this book, Miracle of Love, which was 1,000 stories about my guru, Neem Karoli Baba, there's a chapter in it called Krishna Play, which is all about how Maharaji would get into all these very strange sexual scenes with some of the women. And the Indian devotees were freaked. You can't put that in the book. And the Western devotees were freaked. You don't say those things about your guru. I think this is a higher book because of it. Because I think anything that denies the totality of what is, how could that have anything to do with freedom? I mean, do you want to be free or do you just want to be high? Being free means buying the whole ball of wax. It means opening to what is. It's much scarier than getting high. Much scarier. You sit straight or sit way you should be comfortable. Take a few slow, deep, intentional breaths, very slow, and breathe way down into your abdomen, actually in your belly, lower belly. Then let your breath quiet down. And tune to what is. All the sounds, listen to the sounds. Feel the sensations of your body. Feeling of the chair, your feet, hand, the air on your skin. Notice any smells or tastes that you're experiencing. Just notice them. Don't cling to them. You don't need to judge them. Just notice them. Notice how you can move your awareness from one place to another. For example, notice your left elbow. You don't have to look at it, just feel it. Move your awareness there until you can feel it. Without moving the elbow at all, you can feel the elbow. Now move your awareness to your right shoulder. Now notice when you're being aware of your right shoulder, that you're probably no longer noticing your left elbow. It didn't go anywhere, you just shifted your awareness. Try the feeling of your left foot, the bottom of your left foot. Now move to the tip of your nose. Now while you're at the tip of the nose, you're not noticing your shoulder. Now I mention it, there it is again. Now, instead of directing your awareness, just open your awareness to what is and let it move from thing to thing. If there is a sound that captures your awareness, go to the sound. If a sensation of your body captures your awareness, go to the sensation. Let your awareness float through your sensations. But there's one more place that awareness goes. It goes into thoughts, which includes feeling. Sometimes your awareness, you're busy thinking about the past or the future, or thinking about what's happening to you at the moment. And these are thoughts. They're just like sensations. They're just passing points that the awareness focuses on for a moment. So now identify with just the awareness and let your sensations, your feelings, your thoughts arise, exist, and pass away. Sometimes the sensations are persistent, meaning they arise again and again. Like a pain may arise, exist, and pass away. There's the pain again, it's still here. Allow it not to be here. Don't push or pull, just be with. Be with your sensations, your thoughts. Moving your awareness from one thing to another, watching the way the awareness is pulled, first by this, then by that. What happened to the elbow and the shoulder and the bottom of the foot and the tip of the nose? Coming and going. Your awareness gets caught into one of these sensations or thoughts. Just notice it. Be aware. Just be mindful of what is. Don't push it away. There's heaviness, let it be heavy. Sadness, let there be sadness. There's peace, let there be peace. You hear traffic, let there be traffic. If you feel hunger, let there be hunger. If you feel confused, let there be confusion. Let what is be for a moment. Very gently and very quietly now, place the fingers of your right hand on the top of your head, very gently, and the fingers of your left hand at the point right above the place between your eyebrows, right at your ajna, the third eye, and very subtly sense the qualities of both those spots, and let a balancing happen. You might feel them as pulses or vibrations or tensions or thickness. If you don't feel any of those things, Just be with those two spots equally. Now move your left hand to the hole where you're in your throat, or place the indentation right above the collarbone, keeping the right hand placed on the top of the head, and feel for those subtle pulses and bring them into balance. Now move your left hand to the middle of your chest, and again feel the balancing of vibration or pulse or density or heaviness. And if you feel no things, just feel those 2 points equally. Now move your left hand to the abdomen right below the rib cage. Again, the balancing. The left hand down around the navel, just a little below the navel, very gently resting on that space. The other on the head. Just as if you were a set of jumper cables, equating these two energies. Finally, the left hand resting very lightly on the pelvic bone, the right hand on the head. Now bring your hands down. You hold your hands out in front of you so that the palms are forward, fingers raised, eyes closed. Now experience or visualize or imagine, whatever you'd like, as if something were passing down through the top of your head into the middle of your chest, and then down your arms or up into your hands and out from the hands, from the palms and fingertips of the hands. Experience your body this moment as a transmitter, a medium, a vehicle through which a vibratory rate or an energy or a light passes. And now, if you wish, bring to mind some being or all being, or the earth, or some form that is caught in suffering. And imagine it in front of your hands. And let that energy, that prana, that soma, that stuff, down through the top of the head, through the heart, down the arms, out the hands. Let it surround the being that you have brought to mind, whether the being be the earth, or an individual, or even yourself. And with your imagination, see that being surrounded with the purest form of energy, with light, just with healing light. When you're ready, you can lower your hands. Now we're going to break for lunch.
This is the end of side 1 of this cassette. Please fast forward your cassette at this time. Let the tape run to the end of the cassette and then turn it over for the beginning of side 2.